Fiancée canceled the wedding. 5 minutes before, with a cruel text, "You're too ordinary for me." I read her text in front of everyone and turned our $60,000 ceremony into a freedom party. 2 days later, dumped by her sugar daddy at a hotel, she came back begging for another chance. Hello everyone, I'm writing this while watching the waves crash on the shore. It felt like a good time to recount everything that happened. Maybe, hopefully, it will help someone else jot down the red flags I chose to ignore. It took me 4 months to process enough of this to write it down. My name is Ethan, I'm 28, and I was with Chloe, 25, for almost 4 years. We were the classic example of opposites attracting. She was spontaneous, impulsive, always proposing ideas like, "Let's go to Vegas right now," or "Let's quit everything and backpack across Europe." Meanwhile, I worked 50 to 60 hours a week as a civil engineer, building a stable future for the two of us. That was our dynamic. She brought the sparkle and I brought the structure. For the first 2 years, it worked. She would tell me she loved my stability, that she felt safe with me. She called me her rock. We moved in together after a year and a half into a simple but comfortable apartment in the city. It had a small balcony where we used to sit with coffee on weekends and talk about our future. Kids, a house in the suburbs, that whole dream. I started saving for a ring. I proposed after 3 years together, and we set the date for the following year. There was plenty of time to organize the perfect wedding. But in the last few months before the ceremony, everything started to change. I can precisely pinpoint the moment something went wrong. 6 months before the wedding, Chloe became obsessed with Instagram. It wasn't just a hobby. Everything had to be aesthetically perfect to upload. She spent hours editing photos, obsessively checking her follower count. Our dinner conversations turned into monologues about her personal brand and how she was about to be discovered by sponsors. The arguments about money also began, not because of a lack of it, but because, according to her, we deserved more. She compared us to other couples she saw on social media, who traveled constantly or lived in mansions. "Why aren't we?" she would ask. "Look at Maria and James. They're going to Bali next month." The funny thing was that while I worked full-time, she only had a part-time marketing job, 3 days a week. But when I tried to talk to her about financial reality, she'd call me boring or too practical. I clearly remember 2 months before the wedding when she made a comment that sounded like a joke but didn't feel like one. "You know what the perfect wedding gift would be? A Tesla. We're going to be a power couple." We laughed, but deep down I felt uneasy. Then came the issue of the gift registry. I almost had a heart attack when I saw the list. A $900 blender, $500 sheets, a $1,200 coffee maker. When I suggested we moderate a bit, she gave me a lecture on how those things were investments in the future. A month before the wedding, she started acting more reserved with her phone. She took calls in another room. She received messages at odd hours. She'd tell me it was about wedding surprises or issues with the bridesmaids. One night, 3 weeks before the event, she came home late after a supposed final dress fitting. Her makeup was different, and she had a strange energy. I asked her about the dress, and she replied that everything went perfectly, without looking me in the eye. She then went straight to the shower. I found a receipt in her purse from an expensive downtown restaurant. The time coincided exactly with the dress fitting. I didn't say anything. What was I going to do? Accuse her of something for checking her bag? I decided to swallow it, thinking maybe it was a surprise for me. The next day I noticed she had changed her Instagram profile picture to a very professional image, clearly not taken by me. When I asked her, she said, "Oh, Sarah took it while we were shopping." Sarah, her sister, who lately had been giving me strange looks every time we crossed paths. I started noticing more details: new clothes in her closet, a different perfume, Uber ride receipts to places she never mentioned. Every time I tried to talk about it, she played the victim. "You're paranoid because of the wedding stress." And yes, I started to feel like I was going crazy. 10 days before the wedding, we had a dinner with both families to finalize the last details. My parents covered about 70% of the expenses, hers the rest. Her dad made several comments about my income, my future plans. He even asked about my retirement. More than welcome, I felt like I was being evaluated as an investment. On the way home, Chloe mentioned that a friend of hers had received a Range Rover as an anniversary gift from her husband. "Isn't that romantic?" She sighed. I replied that for me, romance was about being there for each other during tough times. Without turning to look at me, she said, "Yeah, but a Range Rover doesn't hurt either." I should have realized everything sooner, but we all know what love does. It makes us blind. I woke up early with a strange mix of nerves and excitement. Despite the tension of the last few months, I kept repeating to myself that this day would mark the start of a new stage. I thought that once married, everything else would be behind us. So I wrote to Chloe at 8 o'clock. "Good morning, my love. Can't wait to see you walk down the aisle." I didn't get a response. I thought she must be busy with hair, makeup, or preparations. But an hour passed, then another. I called her, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. That's when I started feeling a knot in my stomach. Something wasn't right. I called one of her bridesmaids. No answer. Everything was too strange. By 11 a.m., I was genuinely worried. I tried her mother, also to voicemail. I called her sister Sarah. No sign. It was as if they had all vanished. Liam, my best man, tried to calm me down. "Relax, buddy. These things get delayed. They're probably rushing around with their cell phones silenced." But the feeling wouldn't go away. I went to the ceremony venue early. It was scheduled for 2 p.m. There I found her parents, far too calm, almost fake. I asked her mother if she had seen Chloe. She smiled at me in such a forced way that it seemed like a disguise. "She's a little overwhelmed. You know how brides get." She wouldn't even look me in the eye. Her father barely greeted me. He muttered something about last-minute doubts and walked away. They started talking in low voices to each other, checking their phones. I heard her mother say that Chloe still hadn't answered. When they saw me, they stopped talking abruptly. I went outside. I tried calling her best friend. "Have you heard from Chloe? I can't reach her." Her voice sounded strange. "No, not since last night." "Have you talked to her parents?" I felt my chest tighten. I went straight to the room where Chloe was supposed to be getting ready. I knocked on the door. Nothing. I insisted louder. "Chloe!" Silence. It was locked. An employee told me that no one had entered or left all morning. I went back inside. The event organizer was asking me about the schedule. The florist wanted to know where to place the arrangements. The photographers were already there, but no sign of the bride. At 1:30, the guests started arriving. My entire family was already there with worried faces. Chloe's relatives trickled in, some looking around as if searching for answers. By 1:45, my groomsmen were ready. The bridesmaids hadn't appeared. At 1:50, I was already near the altar, my heart pounding. The officiant gave me looks of pity. The string quartet was playing, but all I heard was a ringing sound, and a mental storm invaded me. Do I go look for her? Do I delay the ceremony? Do I pretend everything is fine and wait for her to show up as if this were some kind of cruel joke? Part of me wanted to believe it was just nerves, that she would appear at the last minute, but a louder part remembered the strange looks, the silences, the late nights. 5 minutes before the ceremony. Still no news. Liam was checking his watch, growing increasingly restless. I kept calling with no response. Then, my phone vibrated. A message from Chloe. Finally. My hands were shaking as I opened it. I thought it would be something like, "I'm running late," or that she was having a panic attack, but no. The message read, "I'm sorry, Ethan. I tried, but I can't marry you. You are too predictable for someone like me. I need more excitement and passion. Besides, I'm too young to settle for this life. I hope you understand someday. Please don't hate me." I stared at the screen, reading it over and over. Rejected. 5 minutes from the altar. By text message. Liam approached. "Are you okay, buddy? It's time." I showed him the phone. His expression was one of pure astonishment. No way. And in that instant, something changed in me. The pain was immense, like a stone in my chest. But on the outside, I turned to ice. I walked toward the officiant, a kind older gentleman who already seemed to suspect something was wrong. "A small change of plans," I told him with a calm I didn't understand myself. Then I walked alone to the altar. The confused looks were immediate, and the murmurs began. I took the microphone and took a deep breath. "Thank you for being here," I said. The room fell into absolute silence. "Just a few minutes ago I received a message from Chloe. It said, and I quote, 'I'm sorry, I can't do this. I need to live my life for myself. I hope you understand someday.'" A generalized murmur swept through the room. Someone on her side burst into tears. My mother looked like she was about to faint. Liam looked at me intently and whispered, "Don't hold back. You owe this to yourself." He was right. "So, there will be no wedding today." "Chloe made her decision," I said with firmness. I let the silence settle. Then I added, "But everything is paid for. The food is served, the band is ready. Tonight will not be a wedding reception. It will be a celebration. A celebration of honesty, even when it hurts, of knowing when something isn't right for you, and of having people who support you even in the unexpected." I raised my glass of water. I didn't dare grab something stronger. "Enjoy yourselves. Eat. Let's dance. Let tonight be a party, even if it's not the one we planned." The next few hours were a whirlwind. About 40% of the guests left. Most of them were Chloe's side. Her parents and Sarah practically ran out, but the rest stayed. My father hugged me so tightly he almost knocked the wind out of me. "Her loss, son. Major loss," he whispered in my ear. The party was awkward at first. Everyone came up with long faces, some making comments as if someone had died. "I'm so sorry. What a cruel way to end everything." I just nodded, thanked them for being there, and tried to redirect the attention. "Did you try the canapés? The chef told me they're his specialty." But over time, the atmosphere changed. Liam and my friends from college surrounded me, cheered me up, and made me laugh. Little by little, the pain disguised itself as gratitude. One of the guests yelled, "Well, we're all dressed up anyway. Let's celebrate as if she lost the best man." And that sentence completely broke the tension in the atmosphere. Someone took over the playlist. The band caught the signal, and without realizing it, people started dancing. Glasses were refilled one after another. The canapés disappeared from the trays, and the room, which had previously felt like a wake, transformed into an impromptu celebration. My cousin Jessica clinked her glass to ask for silence and stood up. To Ethan, who today gave us all a lesson in elegance in the face of an impossible situation. And so, what seemed like a tragedy became a kind of collective therapy, a celebration of coming out unscathed. During a quieter moment, Aunt Carol, who had gone through a complicated divorce, approached me. "You know," she said, "I spent years trying to save something with someone who was never going to value me. You avoided all that suffering in a single day. It hurts now, but someday you'll see that this was a gift in disguise." Meanwhile, I was trying to process that over $60,000 had gone down the drain. The venue, the banquet for 150 people, the outfits, the flowers, the non-refundable honeymoon in the Maldives. Most of those expenses came from me and my parents. Chloe always had issues with invoices or similar excuses. Around 9 p.m., I managed to sneak into the cloakroom. I turned off the light and sat alone in the darkness. I finally allowed myself to breathe. Everything hit me at once. The humiliation, the deceit, the disbelief. I put my head in my hands and broke down. I gave myself exactly 5 minutes. I timed it. Then I stood up to face the others again. Just as I was leaving, I ran into Liam. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," I lied. He put his hand on my shoulder. "Look, whatever you feel right now is valid, but you have to understand something. What she did is about her, not about you. Some people don't know how to recognize value when it's right in front of them." I nodded, not trusting my voice to answer. "Oh. And by the way," he added with a smile, "Aunt Carol is doing the worm on the dance floor. You have to see it to believe it." That drew a real laugh from me. the first all day, and that moment marked a change. We ended up closing the place. The last 20 guests and I sat around a large table, reminiscing, laughing at old stories, and making plans to see each other more often. It wasn't the night I had imagined, but it wasn't the total disaster I had feared either. I didn't hear anything from Chloe that night, or the next day, or the day after that. Absolute silence. I returned to my apartment, technically ours, although she had already moved almost all of her things to a suite at her parents' house the week before the wedding. The place felt empty. I couldn't sleep in the bed, so I spent 2 consecutive nights on the sofa. On the third day, my mother came to see me. When she walked in, she saw the unwashed dishes, the piled-up clothes, and without saying anything, she opened the windows, started a load of laundry, ordered takeout, and sat with me to watch mindless action movies. She didn't try to make me talk or give me empty advice. She just stayed with me. After the third movie, I broke the silence. You know what the worst part is? I still don't understand why. 4 years together, and she wasn't even able to tell me to my face. My mother took my hand and said, "Some people don't have the courage to face the consequences of their decisions. That's not your fault." On the 4th day, my phone blew up. Missed calls, voice messages, desperate texts. "Ethan, I made a terrible mistake. We have to talk. Please answer me. I love you." I didn't answer, but I needed answers. So I called Olivia, a mutual friend who had disappeared after the disaster. She answered immediately, her voice strained. "Look," she told me, "I didn't know how to tell you, but you deserve to know everything." We met for coffee that same afternoon. She arrived with evidence, screenshots, messages, call logs. Apparently, several of our friends had found out right after the wedding and were furious, not just with Chloe, but with themselves for not having seen it coming. It turns out it wasn't a nervous breakdown. Chloe had everything planned with a guy named Marcus, an older, ostentatious type who boasted about his business empire and life of freedom. They met at a digital marketing workshop, and she fell for his facade. The plan was clear: marry me, gain legal access to my assets, and after 6 months, divorce me and live off the alimony while building her career as an influencer. That's why she insisted so much on a luxurious wedding, the honeymoon trip, the shared accounts. Marcus filled her head with phrases like, "Boost your brand and secure your future." They thought I was a fool with money, that Chloe would walk away from the marriage with a good sum, and they would invest it together in their content empire. But by canceling the wedding before signing the legal documents, the whole thing collapsed. I contacted her former roommate, whom I barely knew but who had spoken privately with Liam. She confirmed Olivia's story and added something more. Marcus dumped her as soon as he found out we hadn't signed the marriage certificate. No marriage meant no assets, no alimony, no legal advantage. He kicked her out of the suite and blocked her everywhere. She was left stranded, without lodging, her card declined, and ended up calling her father to pick her up. With suitcases in hand in the lobby of a boutique hotel, she looked like an eliminated reality show contestant. And to top it off, Marcus had a girlfriend in another city. Chloe was just a fling with no future. She found out when the real girlfriend sent her screenshots of their own conversations. In short, her grand plan crashed before it even took off, and all she was left with was a return ticket to the guest room at her parents' house. Want to talk about poetic justice? That's poetic justice in designer heels with no refund rights. Now Chloe is desperate. She called me again a week after the wedding. Out of morbid curiosity, I answered. "Ethan, thank God," she was sobbing. I didn't say anything. I waited. I made a huge mistake. It was the stress, the pressure. Marcus meant nothing. "We can fix this. Tell them I had a panic attack. Let's reschedule the wedding." She had the audacity to try and concoct an alternative story. I kept my voice firm, with no trace of emotion. "You wrote me a message rejecting me. You had your escape route prepared with another guy. There is nothing to fix, Chloe. This is over." She instantly fell apart. "No, Ethan, don't say that. It was a mistake. I love you truly." I replied. Or is it because your new source of income vanished, and your castle in the air collapsed, and now I'm the Prince Charming again? You don't understand, she cried. He tricked me. He promised me things he never delivered. He left me stranded in a disgusting motel. I had to call my dad. I let out a low, exhausted laugh. And that is supposed to move me? You picked the wrong scammer. And now you expect me to take you back as if nothing happened? She didn't know how to react. She blurted out, I made a mistake. Please. Then came the desperation. Where will I go? What am I going to do? I paused, looked at her in silence for a second, and replied flatly, I honestly don't give a damn. And I blocked her. The next morning I received an email from her mother with the subject, You owe us an explanation. I should have deleted it without reading, but I have a bad habit of confronting chaos head-on. The message was full of demands, reimbursement for their flights, lodging, spa treatments, dress alterations, and even emotional distress. According to them, I should compensate them for allowing the wedding to proceed when I supposedly already knew Chloe wasn't ready, as if I now had psychic powers. The punchline was glorious. We expect full reimbursement within 14 days, or we will take legal action. I read it twice. I even checked the calendar in case it was an April Fool's joke, but no. My lawyer responded with a single line. There is no legal basis. Please cease all contact with Ethan. And then Chloe's father, who had never said a word during our entire relationship, decided to become the defender of family honor. He called me after midnight, his voice shaky, clearly drunk. You humiliated her. You provoked her to run away. You ruined our family name. You owe us compensation. Perfect, I said. I'm still waiting for your lawyer. In the following days, I was bombarded with messages from unknown numbers, almost all full of insults. Noah, my best friend, received a direct message from Sarah, Chloe's sister, insinuating that she would reveal the truth on social media if I didn't act correctly. Noah simply took a screenshot and uploaded a video of himself doing a somersault on the beach with the caption, "This is what you wanted, legend." The most astounding thing was that no one, not a single person in their circle, mentioned what Chloe had actually done. In their distorted version, I was the problem, the villain who refused to pay for her escape, the one who didn't keep quiet while she left me standing at the altar. Even her mother had the audacity to write to me that if I had been more generous, maybe Chloe wouldn't have felt the need to seek something different. According to her, the pressure to meet my expectations had pushed her to the limit because, of course, not giving her a Tesla or designing a luxury influencer life was apparently what led her to cheat, lie, and disappear minutes before the ceremony. Soon after, the rumor mill started with full force, fueled by Chloe and Sarah. According to what I began to hear, I was controlling, demanding, and the best part, that I myself had canceled the wedding and faked her leaving me. The text message she sent me, they claimed, was taken out of context or sent under duress, and some, the more distant or naive ones, believed it. An acquaintance of hers, whom I had barely greeted twice, wrote to me, I always felt something was off with you. Now I understand why she couldn't marry you. I didn't respond. Why bother? Chloe started uploading vague posts on Instagram about escaping toxic environments and reconnecting with her self-worth, hashtags like Survivor and My Truth Matters, as if she were the victim of this whole mess. I didn't go out and publicly deny anything. I only told those who asked me directly. She texted me 5 minutes before the ceremony to say she couldn't marry me. She left with another guy. It didn't work out. End of story. I showed the message to those who doubted. Most immediately understood what had happened, though that didn't stop her family. They continued to write to me, even sending a printed letter to my apartment. They wanted me to pay for everything, from planning expenses to the value of the returned or donated gifts. Sarah also suggested that I should cover her sister's therapy sessions for the trauma that she herself had caused. It was the height of audacity. I went to my lawyer again. He read their claims and laughed. He assured me that they had absolutely no legal basis. He responded with a formal email. Ethan, consider this matter closed. Chloe unilaterally canceled the relationship and the wedding. No compensation is owed. Any additional attempts will be treated as harassment. I blocked all the new numbers and emails that appeared after that. Then I sat down to think about what I should do with the $18,000 non-refundable honeymoon in the Maldives. Chloe had been obsessed with that destination. She personally chose the overwater bungalow. She showed photos to everyone. Look at the sea, the private terrace, the dolphins you can see from the room, she repeated every chance she got. The travel agency confirmed that I couldn't get the money back, but I could change the name of the second person on the reservation. Letting those $18,000 vanish felt like giving her a victory. Besides, I already had 2 weeks off work. I had earned them, so I called Noah. "What are you doing next week? Fancy surfing in the Maldives?" Silence on the other end. Then he replied, "Are you serious?" "Completely. The trip is paid for. No refund. Should we use it?" "Heck yes." Noah is a surf instructor at a local beach. He practically lives in the ocean. If anyone could enjoy a tropical paradise, it was him. 2 weeks later, we were flying first class to the Maldives. We took our boards and turned that trip into an unforgettable adventure. We stayed in the same bungalow she had chosen. We surfed spectacular waves, ate incredible seafood, and completely disconnected from everything. The resort staff clearly had expected a newly married couple, and instead received 2 friends with surfboards. Still, they were extremely professional. One night, a waiter approached me while we were having dinner. "Sir, if you don't mind, this was a honeymoon trip." I nodded. He leaned in a little and said, "My wife left me 2 days before our wedding. She ran off with my cousin." He touched his chest. "You've done well to come anyway." That unexpected comment hit me harder than everything else. A complete stranger in the middle of the ocean telling me he understood what I was going through was profoundly healing. We spent the days surfing at sunrise, when the sea was like a mirror and the sky was just beginning to light up. I don't know if it was the trip, the waves, or simply the silence, but something inside me began to mend. There's something about the ocean that makes you see things from another perspective. When you're out there on a board, you realize how small you are. The ocean doesn't stop to think about your problems. It's just there. You either face it, or it leaves you behind. Honestly, the trip ended up being much better than a traditional honeymoon would have been. No arguments or reproaches for checking work emails. No one demanding perfect photos for social media. Just 2 friends enjoying paradise, sunrise surfing, naps in hammocks, and meals fit for kings. There was one instant that was etched in my memory. Around the 5th day, we were sitting on the bungalow terrace, watching the sun set on the horizon with a cold drink in hand. Noah turned to me and said, "You know what the craziest thing is? If she hadn't run off, you'd be trapped in a marriage with someone who didn't really love you right now, and you wouldn't have even realized how close you were to avoiding a catastrophe." And he was right. As painful as her abandonment was, at least it happened before signing any legal papers, before thinking about children, shared mortgages, or a life so intertwined that breaking it would have been even more destructive. A day before returning home, I uploaded a single photo to my private Instagram account. Just Noah and me, with our boards under our arms, smiling in front of the crystal clear water. The caption read, "New tides, better roots." I didn't tag anyone, didn't mention the wedding or the rejection, but as expected, an acquaintance screenshotted it and sent it directly to Chloe. I heard she cried for hours when she saw the image, but they weren't tears of regret. It was something else. Frustration, rage. How dare I enjoy the trip that, according to her, belonged to her? And while it sounds cruel, that gave me a certain peace. Not because I wanted her to suffer, but because it confirmed what I already suspected. She wasn't hurting over losing me, but over the life she thought she was going to have with me. It was a brutal relief to realize that I dodged something worse than a bullet. It was like avoiding an explosion. About 4 months have passed since then. Everything calmed down. The claims stopped after a very firm email from my lawyer. The gossip also lost its momentum. In the end, when your version is based on facts and the other person fills the gaps with lies, the truth imposes itself. I found out that after Marcus left her and she understood that I wasn't going to take her back, she ended up staying at her sister Sarah's house. But that didn't last long. Chloe expected Sarah to support her emotionally and financially. She didn't look for work. She complained about everything. She treated the place like a hotel. 2 months were enough for Sarah to kick her out because even family affection has its limits. According to several acquaintances, living with Chloe was a nightmare. She slept until noon, left everything dirty, spent hours scrolling through social media and crying about the life she should have. She ordered expensive food using Sarah's card without asking permission. She took her clothes without returning them and burst into screams every time she was suggested to look for a job or contribute to the house. She eventually moved back in with her parents. She got a basic office job, but she doesn't stop complaining on social media about her economic situation and how unfair life is, as if the universe owes her a debt. She never acknowledges that all of this is a consequence of her own decisions. Her current account is full of vague phrases like rising from the ashes or sometimes the wrong decisions lead us to the right place. Things that sound good but don't fool anyone who knows what really happened. Her victim role is more elaborate than ever. Not a shred of responsibility, not a sign of remorse, just resentment because her perfect plan fell apart. And I am fine. Very fine, in fact. I won't lie. The first few weeks were tough. I felt stupid, betrayed, heartbroken. But that party for dodging a bullet, as strange as it sounds, set the tone I needed. My friends and family were there from the start. Going on the trip with Noah was the best thing I could have done. A clean cut. A way to salvage something positive from the wreckage. Yes, financially it was a hard hit. Over $60,000 lost between the wedding and the trip. But money comes and goes. What I recovered was something much more valuable. Self-respect. The freedom of not being tied to someone who saw me as an ATM and a springboard to a life of appearances. I didn't lose someone worth keeping. I lost someone who thought my effort was just a means to fulfill a fantasy of hers. I got rid of a family who treated me like a wallet, not a person. I freed myself from the burden of building a future with someone incapable of valuing what it truly takes to build something lasting. Some friends have offered to introduce me to new people, but honestly, I'm not in a hurry. Maybe in a while, I'll go for it. But for now, my attention is focused on myself. I'm working on rebuilding every part of my life, but from a different place. One where I don't need to prove anything to anyone or sustain projects that weren't truly mine. Today, I have clarity. I know what I want, and more importantly, what I'm no longer willing to tolerate. Everything that happened hurt, yes, but it also opened my eyes. It freed me from an illusion that had trapped me, and while it was tough at first, I wouldn't trade that lesson for anything. If you're going through something similar, don't lose sight of this. What feels like a wound today may actually be the exit you needed. It's not the end of the road. It's the beginning of something much more authentic.